Have you been sitting on a podcast idea waiting for the perfect time to start? Well, I'm here to tell you that time is now. In this video, I'm going to share with you 3 powerful reasons for why 2025 is the year for you to start your podcast. And spoiler alert, it's not just about the podcast. Okay, let's get into it. Hey, I'm Hiwote. I'm a podcast producer. I've worked on shows like Where Should We Begin with Esther Perel, and This Is Dating, which was listed as one of Time Magazine's best podcasts of 2022. We love to see it. I've worked on shows for brands like the New York Times, TED, and the Gates Foundation. And here on this channel, I make videos for people like you, aspiring podcasters who need to gain the creative clarity and the confidence to make a show that is as unique as you are. And here's the thing, there are a million reasons for you to start a podcast in 2025, but I think the most important one is this. Creating your show will inevitably change you. Now, here's what I mean. Most of us have these ideas, these creative ideas for weeks, months, and for a lot of us, it's years that we've been sitting with ideas. There is a deeper part of us trying to tell us something that we're usually not listening to. And this is true whether I'm talking about a podcast or something else that's a creative pursuit that's been on your heart and on your mind for a while. 8 years ago, when I first started my very first podcast, I was really looking to understand how people built careers and lives that felt vibrant and enjoyable because I was not enjoying my own life. And so I set out to interview Black women who were living these incredible lives. And the more time I spent with them, the more I realized that all of them had a couple common threads. They were very bold in stating what they wanted, and they were very bold in going after it even when they were afraid. So of course, after spending hours with them, I became similar to them. I started thinking way more boldly and acting despite my fears. Now, fast forward to today. I run a podcasting accelerator. I live in Lisbon. And to be honest with you, my life is the kind of life I used to dream of. And really, I thought I was starting that podcast because I just wanted to hear other people's stories. But really what I was seeking was the change that my body knew, but my mind couldn't quite articulate. There's actually a quote by Martha Beck about this. Whatever you're creating, it's not about the thing that you're creating. It's about the process of becoming a different person as you create it. The change is in you. That's what's important. The world will change as a result of what you do, but the real gift is what happens inside you. For many of us, starting a podcast is just the first step in building the creative resilience necessary to create the kind of life that we really seek. So if you don't plant the seeds towards that kind of life now, why do you have reason to believe that it would happen in the future? The second reason is that podcasts are only growing from here. Here's a very interesting fact. There are, depending on the source you listen to, there are anywhere from 3.2 to 5 million podcasts available worldwide, which is why it feels like everyone and their cousin has a podcast. But if you look closely at those numbers, and this is a big but, if you look closely at those numbers, you'll notice that there's only somewhere between 700,000 to 1 million podcasts that are considered active. And these numbers vary depending on your source, but the most important thing here is that most podcasters start their shows but don't keep going. And why this is interesting for you is because podcast audiences are consistently growing. Look at this graph. That's insane. Now, the reason for you to start now is that as podcast audiences grow, more and more people are going to actually start building podcasts that remain consistent. And if you start now, you are able to connect with that audience and get really good with your show by the time the audience for your show is available and looking for a show to listen to. Does that make sense? So if you start now, you are in early before the market gets quote unquote saturated. And quick tidbit here, there are a lot of reasons for why people start podcasts but don't really stick with them. And the big reason that I think is true is because it's notoriously easy to start. You can pick up your phone, record something, and upload it to the cloud, and you technically have a podcast. But the truth is, to grow an audience, you require a few different pieces, and you require strategy, you require community building, and those are things most people are not willing to do or don't know how to do. If you want me to make a podcast on how to stay consistent and how to actually grow your podcast, we can talk about that in a separate video. Number 3 is that podcasting allows you to take control of your story. Now, let's pause and think about all of the global events that have been happening around us over the past few years. If you listen to the exact same event being told from one news organization versus another, it is told in radically different ways. And the reason for this is that people tell stories through their biases, their values, and their experiences. So now let's zoom down to you. When people are telling stories about you, your community, the groups that you belong to, they're being told, again, through the values, biases, and experiences that the storyteller holds. Why wouldn't you take back control of that narrative for yourself? Who are you? What is the story you want to tell about you? What is the story you want to tell about your community? That is what I mean when I say take control of your story. Someone else should not be telling your story for you. Who are you and what do you want us to know about you? All right, those are all of my cases for why I think you should start your podcast in 2025, okay? Now, if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to this channel. There will be more videos on how to start a podcast that is unique to you and how to grow a podcast that is unique to you. And if you want more, you should probably download the 10 steps to launch your podcast. It has the exact framework that I use for my Emerging Voices Accelerator, which is the accelerator that I run for podcasters. I will see you in the next video.